The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome to the show, all Cherries fans, all Liverpool fans, and the rest of the Premier League. Another very, very special guest for you today. Now, before I do welcome on my special guest, here is a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, my special guest is part of the band Dodgy, a band that has been going for over 30 years. Of course, Dodgy released the single Good Enough back in 1996 at the height of the Britpop days. My special guest has also released 6 albums and also performed with Ian Broudie and the Lightning Seeds during the time of Three Lions. It is a pleasure to welcome on to Up the Cherries in all departments, Dodgy drummer Mathew Priest. Welcome to the show, Mathew. How you doing, mate?
Good, Craig. Thank you for inviting me, mate. Thank you.
Not a problem at all, and an absolute pleasure to have you on. We'll come to your music career in a moment, but firstly, how did your love of football begin?
I suppose like any other kid, really. I mean, I was lucky in the sense that I lived on this road with a sort of cohort of kids around my age, really. There was a couple of kids, you know, from about 2 or 3, 4 years younger up to maybe a year older, and there was about 6 or 7 of us. And just every evening, every weekend, you know, we'd be out. And we were also lucky we had like a big field, sort of the grammar school fields that the caretaker would always try to chase us off in his car, but only so often. And they had goals on there as well. So just that thing, really. But I've got a mission to make in this because I'm from the Black Country. I was brought up in the Black Country. Is that my team, my initial team was West Bromwich Albion, was the Baggies. When I was, you know, like up to the age of 10, 11, 12, that kind of, not 12. And I was even a lucky mascot for them. And it was more to do with my mate down the road, Derek. His mom worked for the Hawthorns. She was something in admin or something. So he'd get tickets. So I went along, you know what I mean? And so that was my team when I was a kid. And then, as I said, I was a lucky mascot for the last time they were ever in Europe, which was against Zurich Grasshoppers. I think it was 9. I was 10 years old. And they lost 3-1. And it was the last time that West Bromwich Albion were ever in Europe. And I met Frank Skinner, who, as you know, is a big Baggies fan, and I told him that I was the lucky mascot, and he went, "Young the bastard, we were looking for you. We went out to the streets looking for you. You weren't lucky at all." I went, "No, it wasn't at all." But then what happened is, as I was hitting my teens. Well, around 12 years old, I got my first drum kit, and everything changed. I just wasn't really into football. I was just into music. And then the Beatles and then I really started to discover music. And I literally just, I'd play a bit of football and whatnot, but I wasn't going to any matches or anything. I wasn't following what the Baggies were up to. I was just immersed in music. So that's how my love of the football initially is. As I said, I was lucky that I had a lovely cohort of mates that were all pretty much my age, and we'd go out onto the field and play 3 and in. And I think everyone's got a different name for it, haven't they?
Yeah.
3 and in, 5 and in, and the best feeling in the world is if they had a game coming up, or they just had a game, and they still had the nets up.
Oh yes, tell me about it.
That feeling of like we can score against the nets, and you sort of replicate some of the goals you saw. So yeah, it was there from an early age.
Excellent stuff. How did you transition to Liverpool in the end?
Well, what it was, as I said, I just totally was immersed into music,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that thing. It's the Beatles, And I always liked Liverpool. I remember when I used to go and see West Bromwich Albion, and Liverpool would come to the Hawthorns, and I think there was this idea that West Bromwich Albion were Liverpool's bogey team. Bogey team is this real superstitious load of. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to swear, am I, or not?
Oh yeah, go for it, for it. Everybody else does.
Load of bullshit. Bogey teams, they always lose against that. It was a load of shite. I think we beat them twice in 2 seasons or something. So we must be there. So I remember them coming to the Hawthorns and being like, I'm looking at them play, and now they used to play on the backs and all that. And so I always liked them. But then as I sort of immersed myself in music, and I just really wasn't interested in football. Our first album Dodgy recorded our first album up in Liverpool, and we spent a lot of time up there, and I just fell in love with the place, fell in love with the people, as I wanted to do, really, because I love the Beatles so much, and it was everything I wanted it to be. So when Ian Broudie took us to a match at Anfield when he was recording our first album with him, and that was good. Could have been against City, I think, when City was shite. We and then I was sort of like dibbling and watching what Liverpool were up to, and Istanbul and all that stuff. But it wasn't really until my son was born. And he was born at the end of right before the millennium, and it was the age of 4 or 5 when he started to sort of get into the idea of football and stuff, and I wasn't going to influence in any way, but his mate at school was into Liverpool, and he came back and said, I want to be a Liverpool fan. Then I was like, great, fantastic. And so I re-immersed myself back into football that way, and there's nothing better than just match day with your son. And just exchanging what we still do it now. He's 24. What the squad is, and have you heard this rumor? Have you done that? And did you watch that? And then showing a clip of a goal, and So I was brought sort of from that age, 5, 6, right through. We just immersed ourselves in Liverpool, and that was why I got quite fanatical about them. Is because of my son.
Excellent. Well, just going back to your musical career, I know that you mentioned the Beatles there. Was there anybody else that, in particular, inspired you to be a drummer?
Keith Moon, The Who. I remember I got my first drum kit, and I set it up, and flailing about trying to play like Keith Moon. I just don't have a clue. But it was my ambition. I wanted to, because the sound of The Who was so visceral. Even now, I can listen to Keith Moon, and it just gets me in the stomach. But I think what I could easily achieve a little bit easier, which I could thought, I can actually do this, is U2. And that's when I was like an early teenager, 13, 14 years old. Those early U2 albums, War and Unforgettable Fire, and playing along to them. And the Cult, It was around that time of Ray what was the album called? Rain, She Saw Sanctuary. People will know. Love. The album's called Love. That was a big album for me. It was around that time, sort of early 80s, coming up to the mid 80s. And then I discovered 60s stuff, the Beatles and soul, Otis Redding and Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, and the Beatles and the Stones and the Small Faces. But initially, it was just the look of, I think I saw a clip of him on the telly, and I just went, what the fuck is that? And just his head in the air. And I thought, I want to do that, My mum was like, you will not, son. But yeah, as I said, but I did aim my sights a bit lower. Larry Mullen Jr. from U2 could just about do that. And then I sort of progressed to the next level.
How did you get to meet Nigel and Andy?
Well, Nigel, I was in a band because back then, sort of 1985, I was one of the only drummers in the school. And so I was in a couple of bands. And I was in this band who was with the guys who were a couple of years older than me. Lovely guy called Jamie Powell, who's a singer. His dad was Jimmy Powell and the Dimensions, who were a big 60s band. And lovely, charismatic, lovely guy. Still in touch with him now. And we had this band called Sensation of the Mind. And Jamie left. Jamie, he'd had enough of the guitarist. And we put an advert in the paper. I put the advert in the paper. So it said, in the Bromsgrove Advertiser. If it's still going, probably hit the rocks. So the best band in the world require the best singer in the world. And I think that was it. And Nigel replied, and he turned up for an audition. And he was a vision. I mean, for me, I was just 15 years old, and he was 17, and he had his own car, and he had leather trousers on and a leather waistcoat and spiky white hair like Billy Idol. And it was like, wow, and he's 6 foot anyway. I was, wow, look at him. And he had this great voice, sort of gravelly voice back then. That's how I met him, and we hit it off straight away because we were both fans of the album Infected by Talk Talk. And I don't think he could quite believe that I was someone my age was into it, because he was really into it. He really loved his music. But he comes from a punk background. So he introduced me to bands like The Clash and The Ruts, and The Doors and bands like that. And I was from a more soul background. So I introduced him to Sly and the Family Stone, Otis Redding and things like that. And so, and that's how we hit it off. And so we moved down to London to be in a band after much time trying to convince my mum, and I finally crushed her. My will. She goes, just go. She wanted me to go to university, and I was like, no, I've got to do this, Mum. And so, because Nigel was giving up his car, his house, his fiance, his job. I mean, he was really sacrificing loads because he really believed in it. He said, we've got to go down to London. And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, okay, I've got to tell my mum. And we went down, and then we went through a couple of members, lived in a couple of houses, and eventually we settled in underneath the flight path in Hounslow West, the Heathrow flight path. And we put an advert in the paper for a guitarist. I think we'd just lost our bass player and lost another guitarist, and so we just down to me and Nige. Put out the paper for a guitarist, and we had about 20 turn up, and Andy was one of the last ones, and we hit it off. And then within a year, we were signed. So it was the chemistry that worked,
Fantastic.
He was from that area. He was in West London. QPR fan.
Somebody has to be, don't they?
Doesn't talk about it much. A bit like me with West Bromwich Albion, you know what I mean? Talk about it much.
But you did sign a 6-album record deal, I believe it was. And as you did mention there, you worked with Ian Broudie, of course, of the Lightning Seeds. How was it like working with Ian and signing that deal with the contract label?
To tell you the truth, most contracts back then were for 6 albums. I mean, there was a lot of money sloshing around in the music industry. Various reasons. I mean, they released CDs back in the 80s, the whole CD revolution, where a lot of people were rebuying the albums they already had, but on CD, and there was just shitloads of money in the music industry, and generally people were quite well off back then, in the early 90s, so the 6-album deal was standard, really, but what wasn't it? What we signed to a major label, which was A&M, but signing to a major label then was not cool, and sort of the attitudes and the perception of bands was very much ruled by the music press. They had to, oh no, you're cool and you're not, so you kind of had to play the game a little bit, and we weren't the only ones. Blur, they were seen as an indie band, but they weren't. They signed to EMI via Food Records. Oasis were always on Sony, but via Creation, so it was like the facade of an indie label, but actually it's a major behind it, and that's where the money came from, so we were, and the whole thing of this discovering ourselves and being an indie band, part of the deal was that we would, they would leave us alone for a year. We'd set up our own indie label, which was Boston Records, and just allowed to just experiment and release 3 singles off our own back, just do whatever we want. And we worked with Paul Schroeder, who was the engineer on the Stone Roses first album, and we had some great fun recording these 3 singles, but they were all over the place stylistically. There was kind of like a rock and roll type Stonesy song, there was some dancey stuff, there was some dubby stuff, there was some freaked out psychedelic stuff, so there wasn't a style. We were dipping our toes in different puddles. So when A&M finally slapped our asses and said, "Right, come on, get in the studio, let's do the proper Dodgy, stop fucking about." We really loved Ian Broudie's stuff with the Lightning Seeds, and we worked with Echo and the Bunnymen as well. So the Cutter, the Back of Love. So we went in with him, and he seemed to like what we were doing, but because we were kind of stylistically, we weren't set on a path. We weren't like, no, this is what we want to sound like. Yeah. We went into the studio with Broudie, and he's a phenomenal producer, and he's great at making decisions where we weren't, and so it ended up sounding a little bit like, not a lot like a Lightning Seeds record, but it had Ian Broudie's fingerprint definitely on it, which is absolutely fair enough, because it probably wouldn't have sounded half as good unless he'd have done that, And I think it's important for me to explain that, because I've seen me quoted about that sometimes, where I don't want Ian to get the wrong idea that, Ian made it sound bad. No, I love the sound of it. It was just the fact that he kind of knew what he was doing more than we did stylistically. We had the songs and we thought that was enough. We were quite naive and green behind the ears, really. So Ian just did his job, I'm going to make a great sounding record here. And then by the time of the second album came along, because we'd been out touring constantly and we'd grown up as a band, and, we knew what we were doing, by then we had a lot more of an idea and a lot more confidence. I think that's really the word I'm looking for, confidence in the studio. Ian Broudie had confidence, and we fed off his confidence on that first album. But by the second album, we developed our own confidence and knew what we wanted to do. And when we worked with Hugh Jones, and he was the perfect match for us, because he could use that and then work with that, So it was great. It was great working with Ian Broudie.
Excellent. Well, in the early days as well, you did gig alongside Oasis. How well did you get on with Liam and Noel?
To tell you the truth, we did one gig with them, which was up in Manchester, at the university, and Academy University, whatever it's called. And I kind of vaguely saw one song, and they were quite intimidating backstage because the real people from Liverpool were there as well. And there was a lot of naughty things going on backstage. Wouldn't believe it. And they're quite intimidating. I mean, they weren't being nasty or anything, but just their general demeanour is like quite fucking scally and quite, in your face. And so, that was kind of like, okay. So we didn't really have much contact with them. But then we did a show with them called Night Network that was presented by Caitlin Moran, Johnny Vaughan. Great show.
Yeah.
Night Network or something like that. Or I don't know. It was a late night show with bands on. And we were promoting So Let Me Go Far. I think they were doing Shaker Maker. And then we bumped into them again, and we had a nice time with them then. And we've always got on with them. I mean, Liam came into our dressing room, and he was. You could see they were just about to go stratospheric. The press was saying everything about them, and you could see he was excited, but he was daunted. He was like. He had anxiety. It was really interesting. He was coming out. His anxieties were coming out about if he was good enough, and and you guys have got it. And almost, I say he was like a pussycat. He was very gentle and very polite. We got on with him really well. And then he opened the door. Brilliant. And he opened the door to the dressing room where everyone else was in agreement. He was like, fucking let's have it. And it was like, hang on, just a minute ago, you were like a lovely, sort of gentle, polite kid, and then fucking let's have it, mate. And I was like, right, okay, yeah, good. You're playing a character, and I get that. And Noel's always been nice about us. He was. There's a story goes around that he said that he played Water Under the Bridge from our first album to the fledgling boys. Like might even be called Rain or Oasis, the early Oasis before they were signed, and said, these fuckers can do it, so why can't we? So we bumped into him every so often. And then our mate Gem, that we was part of our gang in London, he went on and joined Oasis. We bump into him every so often,
And the other band that you worked alongside was the Bottle Garden, of course, later known as the Blue Tones. We've had Adam Devlin on here. What were they like to be around?
We that was back at the start before we were signed, and we had a thing called the Dodgy Club that we set up. And, of course, Adam Devlin's a Brentford fan, isn't he? Yeah,
he is. Yeah.
We had a thing called the Dodgy Club where we would put it on every 2 weeks and play. We wouldn't advertise them. We'd only say Dodgy on at 10 o'clock, but we would advertise the songs that we're playing. Stone Roses, Jimi Hendrix, quite psychedelic stuff. And it was essentially a residency. And we'd pack it out. We'd go and advertise in all the nurses' colleges and the sixth form colleges, and it was sold out from the first time we played. It was great, and they lived basically right near, or their nan lived right near where we lived in Hounslow West, and they heard about it, as you do if because they're in a band. You hear about, this band have set up this residency in Kingston, so they came down. And we don't know if we saw them then, or we may have seen them then. Memory's a bit fuzzy, but they were walking past our house one day. That's what I remember. And me and Nige were in the upstairs playing some stupid game against the wall, like squash or something, or playing with. I think we used to play like football slam against the wall with rolled up socks. And we looked out the window and we saw them walk past, and they looked like Stone Roses fans. They had the Parkers on, and the flares and the haircuts, and we were shouting out the window, taking the piss out of them. And they were like, cough, and and then we saw them down the club the next time we played the Dodger, and we were like, oh, it's you guys, oh right. And then they came back to our house, and the pipe of peace was smoked, and we got on, and from then on, it's they used to spend a lot of time around our place, and as we started, we got signed, and that house had about 5 bedrooms, and we set up a great little rehearsal space in the garage. We put a room inside the garage and then packed it with mattresses, and it was good for it was good for a considering we did it ourselves. And we could rehearse in there day and night. We wouldn't get any complaints. And so the Blue Tones were like, oh, well, at the time they were the Bottle Garden, and they saw that. And as one of us moved out, one of them moved in. Then another one of us, and they moved in, and they eventually, it was a bit like a parasite, how it overtakes a body. No, they sort of moved into the house as we moved out. And I think Andy was the only one left. I don't know if they realised he was there. I think he was in the loft. And, I think they found him one day. Oh, you're still here. But yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good fun times back in the early days there.
Your third album was called Three Piece Suite. Of course, Homegrown had preceded it, which contains the hit Staying Out for the Summer. And the albums actually went gold and then platinum. Were you happy with how those albums did turn out?
Sonically, very much so, yeah. Very much so. As I said, we've got Hugh Jones on board, who again, incredible record of recording some great bands, great albums, and such a lovely gentleman. He knew what we wanted. And as I said, we had that confidence, which is something we didn't really have in there. We had lots of spunk and lots of arrogance, perhaps, and ambition, but we didn't have that sure confidence that we started to develop in album 2 and 3. But yeah, very, very happy with how they turned out. Yeah, it's but it's you can hear the fun that we were having when you can hear that fun. We love doing it. We love doing it. And then going off on tour and then coming back and do some more recording and then going off on tour again. It's crazy times.
And I think that really was epitomised in the song Good Enough, which shot into the top 5. It's a song, to be honest, it always takes me back to that era. And when it comes on, on Spotify, I have to play it over and again and again and again. Honestly, I'll tell you what, it's one of those songs that you just can't dislike. You can't dislike. Could you tell it was a hit when you actually recorded the song in the studio?
Yeah, yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. We knew it was something special. We knew it was good. Even from the little demo that Nige did. It was just very, I mean, the major chords, the progressions, simplicity of it. You knew it was something good. And then we worked on it for quite a while. Well, I say like a day or so, just getting parts and stuff. And it came together really quickly once we'd sort of thought about what we're doing. And I remember my dad, God bless him, he's not with us anymore, but he heard the sort of our first recording of it, and he went, "That's the one. That's the one you've been waiting for." You can hear it straight away. And we gave it the right treatment. I think if we'd have had that on the first album, we wouldn't have been able to do it like that. But we knew we'd grown up a lot, and we knew little tricks to do and little things to do with it to make it sound like it did. And it was, it was an instant hit. It was all over the shop.
I'm guessing it was a timing as well. It was right in the middle of the Britpop days, wasn't it, really?
96, yeah. So Britpop had been going for a couple of years by then, yeah.
Yeah. One thing as well I did read about was that you went to Sarajevo and you was the second band to perform there after the siege. I can imagine it was pretty scary. What actually was it like?
We actually went over to Bosnia 3 times. We went to Tuzla.
Yeah.
Tuzla, yeah. Close. Very important that you don't say Tulsa, because that's a whole different thing. Tuzla we went to, and Sarajevo, and then we went to Sarajevo again and played there. And then we went back and we played in Mostar, and we helped set up the Pavarotti Music Centre. We were the first band to sort of use the Pavarotti Music Centre over there. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, these kind of things come along where, we wanted to see what we could do to help, and then we were in contact talking to this bloke who was part of this convoy that would go out there, War Child convoy, and this one guy would take trucks over there and just take bread and stuff to just help people, and he said, well, I'll get you a gig. And when someone does that, you can't say, no, you're all right, mate. And we're like, okay. And so we set up a gig and we played in his basement, and it was crazy. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I'm glad I went. I mean, we had I think the second or third time we went was Oasis. We're playing Nebworth, and they invited us to be on the bill. So Oasis, Prodigy, Charlatans, Dodgy. But we said no because we were going over to Bosnia. I know, but it's what we did. It's fine.
You did play your fair share of really, really big gigs, and of course you did Glastonbury. You've done Reading. What was your favourite?
It's lovely playing to a big crowd. It really is, especially when you can see a lot of T-shirts, and when people get on people's shoulders and they've got a Dodgy T-shirt on, and the sun shining. It's just phenomenal. You know what I mean? So I don't really care where it is. If there's a big massive crowd there, it's lovely. But ultimately also playing inside a little venue with a crowd going bonkers as well. That can be just as fun. But yeah, Glastonbury '95 was quite special because we were on the rise there. Stand Out for the Summer was in the charts, and we played on the Friday. And we opened, it was Channel 4 back then, and we opened their broadcast. They came live to Glastonbury, and we were the first band live playing. We had to sort of hold back a song, and they said, right, go now. And then we went, welcome Channel 4, and we went into Stand Out for the Summer. That's on YouTube. So you can see that. And you can see the crowd there. You can see the sun shining. You can see me dancing on the stage with my shirt off. Fucking hell. Ladies, be careful. Make sure you sat down before you watch that, okay?
And Reading was 96, if I remember correct. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah,
because there wasn't a Glastonbury 96. So we played Reading, great. I mean, it's Billy Bragg was on before us, and we bless him, it was raining during his set, and then and suddenly there was a break in the clouds and the sun came out really briefly, and I went, that's Dodgy rehearsing backstage, that is. It'll be gone in a minute and it'll be back on when they're on stage. I thought that was very nice of him. I mean, to tell you the truth, I do wish that I could have a good full memory of all these gigs, but alas, I do not.
One thing you did do, and you performed with the Lightning Seeds during the height of Three Lions. If I'm right in thinking, it was around about 96, 97, wasn't it, that you joined them? And
97, yeah.
97, yeah. Well, what was it like actually performing at the height of, that? Of course, that song went everywhere, didn't it? And it's still going everywhere today.
Well, they found themselves without a drummer. Obviously we knew Ian Broudie, and they found themselves without a drummer round about that time, we'd done a tour with them in 1994, Dodgy and the Lightning Seeds. We went around Europe together, and that was just a brilliant tour. Great memories of that, and then he found himself a drummer. He goes, well, I'll ask Math. He can play like a Scouser, and when he plays it, he's got a little bit of a swing to it. And he asked me, and I was like, yeah, bang up for it. He said, well, the first gig is at Anfield in front of 55,000 Scousers. I was like, what? And it's in a week. I'm like, fucking hell. So I think we had like 1-2 rehearsals, and that was my first gig with the Lightning Seeds, was at Anfield. You can see that on YouTube as well. And I was shitting myself. I mean, the thing is with that gig as well, it's the Hillsborough Justice campaign gig.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's a joyous thing because of all these bands are playing, but it's fucking serious,
Yes.
And all these great bands, Beautiful South, Manic Street Preachers, would refuse to headline. They said, no, we're not going to headline because it's Liverpool and the Lightning Feature headline. So we headlined it, So not only first gig, it was headlining at Anfield. We were at the Anfield Road end, so we were facing the Kop. So you look out into the audience and you just see loads of back of people's heads because they were just looking around at the Kop, But one thing I do remember from that day, which is I'll always be grateful for, is that Nicky and James from the Manics, they were on before us. They knew I'd been chatting with them and they knew it was my first gig. And they were so supportive and lovely. They were at the side of the stage pretty much for the whole gig. And whenever I'd look across, they were there just saying, come on, Mathew, yeah. And that really meant a lot. It really did. It was like, yeah, it doesn't matter if I fuck up, it's and it was great. I mean, when we played the footy song, when Holly Johnson came on stage and we did Ferry Across the Mersey. Wow. I mean, I'm glad that there's YouTube that I can watch it because I would have forgotten it. Like, I thought, well, we did Ferry Across the Mersey. I forgot that. But yeah, fantastic. Amazing time.
Excellent stuff. Well, Nigel did depart the band back in 1998 as he wanted to pursue a solo career, and the band released Real Estate, the fourth album. What was that period like for Dodgy?
Pretty murky, really. Pretty murky. It was. I don't like to have regrets, but I just think if that time again, we could have played it differently. We could have just taken our time, just no need to split up. Nigel could have done what he wanted to do, and we could have, but you're young and you're stupid and you get hurt and you let emotions get in the way. And we got this other singer in, Dave Bassey. It was great. He wrote some great songs and he's got a great voice, but it wasn't Dodgy, And I think we had that problem of, well, if we go under a different name, we're going to lose all the success that we've got, But if we carry on as Dodgy, then, it's happened before. Fleetwood Mac have changed singers and fucking arrogantly thinking that was the same. And it was good. There's some really good moments on that album, Real Estate, but it wasn't Dodgy and it wasn't right in that sense. Time is, in fact, a great healer. And then 10 years later, the people started sniffing around and asking us if we wanted to do a reunion tour. And by then, the reasons why we split up were all forgotten,
Excellent stuff. Well, you've released 2 further albums as well since Nigel rejoined the band, with the first single being Down in the Floods. What does the future hold for Dodgy now, do you reckon, Mathew?
Well, we've Down in the Flood. That's good research there, Craig.
Yeah.
That was kind of wasn't really a single. It was like the first bits of recording we'd done together, and we just put it on a CD and just put it out there. We didn't really release it as a single. I think there's a few places you can get it now, but that was really rough ideas of us getting back together. But yeah, now I mean we've recorded 3 new tracks in Wales, and we're going to be recording more tracks in January with the idea of a new album. So it'll be the first new stuff, new album, fingers crossed, since 2017, which was what we're fighting for. So yeah, and we're really immensely happy with what we've done, and sounds great. And now's the right time. And so yeah, 2025, more Dodgy.
Excellent. Wasn't Down in the Flood, if I'm right in thinking now, this is going to go back years and years and years and years. It was actually about a flood somewhere. Am I right in thinking that?
It could have been, yeah. I think Nigel was inspired. I think because he used to live in Pershore, and right near Pershore was a place called Tewkesbury, and whenever there's heavy rain, Tewkesbury's fucked. Straight away. There's a bloke there who's again. And I think that may have sparked the idea of being down in the flood, and then there's lots of imagery and different ideas and metaphors in it as well. But yeah, been swallowed by things and things overtaking you and stuff. But yeah, I think it rings a bell that I think it was that may have sparked the idea with him. Yeah.
Well, of course, as everybody who knows, you are a Liverpool fan and a big Liverpool fan now. But there's been lots of change at Anfield. Of course, Jurgen Klopp, excellent. There's the hat as well. Look at that. I'm sure. Casting my mind back, I'm sure there is an album cover with a hat just like that. Am I right in thinking? What single is it?
What with me with a hat on like that?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Could have been Found You. Could have been Found You. When we were up in we did a video in the Pyrenees, in Andorra. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I used to wear the white fluffy hat. Then I used to wear the kind of pork pie hat. But this is my new hat now.
I'm sure I'm going to have to research that straight after, because that's really it's one of those things that's just going to bug me. But of course, like I was saying, there's lots of changes at Anfield. Jurgen Klopp's left the club and Arne Slot has come in. He's got off to quite a good start, really, hasn't he, Matthew? Do you think it's the continuation of the great work by Klopp, or do you think it's adjustments that needed to be made?
I mean, it can be quite controversial, this, but I think we've got the makings of a better team. I think Klopp, certainly towards the end of his time there, because when he first came in, it's that heavy metal football, and it was that high press, and it's just that energy, and because of the midfield we had then, with Wijnaldum and Henderson, and then a little bit later Fabinho, they covered the midfield. And they covered the back, and that allowed Trent to do the big balls, and we had the runners, and it was solid. The shape was solid, and we could attack high. And then, of course, everyone cottoned on to that way of playing. And within a couple of seasons, everyone was doing that, and also everyone was working out how to get Liverpool, which was the counter attack and find the space. And certainly when we lost Henderson and Fabinho, and just that style, that running midfield, and we got McAllister in and whatnot, and it's a different style. And I really do think that Arne Slot suits the players a lot better now, where they move. It's calmer, and the shape moves, and it's the quick passing. And of course, these players are so good. And I think what Arne Slot has done is he said, look, you're not just this type of player, you're also this type of player. You can do the short, quick passes. You're good enough to do that and break through the lines. And I mean, you've seen the ascendance of Ryan Gravenberch. I always thought he was a good player, but he was not playing in the right position, or something wasn't right, or just the whole general tactics weren't right. And just the way he stuck with Szoboszlai and McAllister and Gravenberch in the midfield there, and not swap them, which Klopp was doing a lot, you could see Klopp had. So in a way, it was devastating when we first heard he was going, because it's like losing your dad. It really was, We loved that bloke. It's not about the football with Klopp. He brought something else. He really did. He was a good left wing man. He was lovely. He was good looking. The amount of times I've heard my Scouse mates say, "Oh, Klopp, he turned me." A couple of beers and a kiss, I'd be glad with Klopp, And he was funny. He was funny and had a massive heart, and that's what Liverpool wanted. You've got to have that. But now we want to start beating Arsenal and City again, convincingly, and we're good enough to do that. And I think Slot's the man. I really do. I mean, what a start. And I love the way he's not trying to emulate Klopp. He doesn't feel pressured to do any of the fist pumps to the crowd or anything. And he's very calm, very confident. And he'll just this is what I want. And I think the players love him. I really do think they respect him a lot.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, look at Diaz. You know, Diaz is a fucking goal machine.
Yeah.
I always knew he had it in him, and the way that he's gone. No, it's Salah again playing out his skin this season, where he's had a couple of seasons where he wasn't great. You know, so and I love the fact he says no, it's Diaz, Jota, Salah, and he's not fucking around with that at the moment. You know, where he's not going, let's get Nunes in, Captain Chaos. You know, let's start a game with him. They go, no, Nunes is there to create chaos towards the end of the game, and I love that. You know, Arne is very confident and he's sure, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see with the big test against City and Arsenal when they start happening. Well, of course, the big test against Bournemouth. You know,
Exactly. I'm going to be a bit controversial back as well, and this is something that I felt about Liverpool watching you last season, and you was right in that title race up until the start of April. And I think it was when Jurgen Klopp decided that he was going to leave the club at the end of the season, it just kind of tailed off.
yeah.
Do you share that thought process?
I mean, I was expecting a lot earlier. I mean,
Mm,
when they made that announcement, I couldn't believe that the players didn't know. I mean, no one could believe it, you know. But they took a little bump. They
mm,
started playing amazingly well, and then we got injuries. You know, we didn't have Jota for a lot of last season. I think we had Trent out for the start of the season. Don't quote me on that. But there were some injuries,
yeah.
as every team does get, you know. But and they were getting knackered.
Mhm.
You see, they were getting knackered, and for them to kind of win, we were thinking. I never thought. I mean, whenever every people were going on about, we'll get the quadruple, and fuck off, we will. You know what I mean? It's we were knackered, and that Klopp leaving thing was going to kick in. You know what I mean? It was going to kick in at some point. It was bound to. So for us to end up where we did, I think was great, was amazing, and I think it's a real testament to the players to see how they've taken on this new manager and how they've taken on this new way of playing. And Virgil, I think, is a key to that. Virgil and Trent are key to that for them to go, right, this is what we're doing, and for the players to follow them. And I think they've done it. I mean, the first couple of games, it was like,
Yeah.
the Man United game, it was like, come on. You know, it was great. It was great to see. So bring it on.
I just feel if Jurgen Klopp hadn't said what he did and just announced it at the end of the season, once the season was done, I just think that you would have been in there for a bit longer. And I just think maybe heads went a little bit, especially at the end of the season, especially right at the end of the season.
Absolutely. But I think he's too honest for that.
Mm,
I really do think he's too honest for that. If he knew,
yeah.
I don't think there's any way he could have got on and looked at his players in the eye. You know, because it really is like that. It's that kind of relationship. And that's what you want. You want honesty. And
Yes.
you want that quick thinking. If he was holding it back, the players would have hated him. Well, what you've known all this time, you haven't told us. You know, and his backroom staff would have known because he was taking them. They were all leaving. Well, he wasn't taking them, but they were all leaving as well. And there was big changes happening. There's no way he could have done that. You know, and kept it a secret. There's no way. You know, and I'm glad. I'm glad that it's gone. And the Klopp era will forever be one of the greatest eras of the Liverpool Football Club. But I'm really excited about Arne Slot. I really am.
Well, Slot has got off to a very, very good start, but one man who did leave Bournemouth, of course, during the summer and join Liverpool was Richard Hughes, and he's joined as the sporting director. There's only one player who joined during this summer. Are you disappointed with the lack of activity, or do you just feel that you have the right squad at the moment?
I'm not, to tell you the truth. I'm not, because we've pretty much got quite a few players for each position. Certainly up front. And in midfield as well. I mean, you look at who we're not playing. You know, we're not playing Elliott. We're not playing Jones. We're not playing Endo. You know, and they say that what we need. I mean, we need. I suppose we need a defensive midfielder. But you know, McAllister's done all right there. He's doing all right there. And Endo towards the end of last season was brilliant when he came in. But yeah, I mean, we're not in a desperate situation, you know, which is great. You know, thank fuck, because there was that ridiculous Caicedo, the one who went on to Chelsea. How much?
I know.
And then Lavia, the other guy who went to Chelsea as well. Fucking hell. I mean, that is just typical Americans with money coming in and going, well, let's just outspend them and buy 2 shit players for 180 million. What the fuck? You know what I mean? We just don't want to. We were in that situation last season where we were desperate for a DM. And we got Endo for cheap, you know. And he really did well. And McAllister, as I said, has done well in that position. So I think when the right thing comes along, we're going to buy. We've got Edwards there as well, who's come back to Liverpool. And he hasn't really done anything in between. And he loves Liverpool. And I think, I keep forgetting his fucking name, the new guy, the Italian that we've just bought. She's Chiesa,
yeah.
I mean, if he can keep his fitness, then wow, you know what I mean? Then that's just outrageous, you know. Certainly with, you know, we're not knowing what's going on with Salah, and so, you know, maybe Salah's got 2 good seasons left. We don't know. I mean, but Salah's so amazing. I won't be surprised if he goes on for another 10. But that was an amazing buy and so cheap, you know, and it was good business. And I think when something comes up and then Liverpool go, right, that's the one, that's the guy we need, I think they'll swoop, you know, because we were very lucky with Fab, Fabinho, with our DM. He was just incredible for a good few seasons. And Hendo was amazing. He could play everywhere. Wijnaldum, again, he could play everywhere. I mean, that was a great midfield. And of course, we lost Milner, who was the monkey wrench of football, who could play anywhere and do anything, you know. But no, I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
It's having that fixed side as well, isn't it, Matthew? Whereas, you know, Chelsea, of course, they have to embed players in all the time and look at them.
Goalkeepers, 7.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely bonkers what's going on at Chelsea. And, you know, PSR, surely they've got to fall foul of that eventually.
Yeah. And we're all waiting for the Man City thing, aren't we? You know.
Yeah.
We're waiting to see what happens there. And I mean, I really hope they're not going to get away with it like Trump does a lot of the time. It will happen. You know, Man City will get their punishment and good. You know, good. I mean, I'm never one for punishing people for anything they haven't done, but I don't like people getting away with shit. Certainly when Everton have been punished.
Yes.
I mean, I know they were quite easy cases, but well, they got 26, 20. How many fucking charges against them?
Well, Manchester City, I think it's 115. Everton were a couple, wasn't it? But they were easier to prove. But then again, you know, this is what makes me laugh about Man City is if you've got, you know, 115 charges, surely 2 of those will be easy enough to prove that, you know, you can save the rest of them. You can do 113 at a later point.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, instead, what they've done is let Man City get away scot-free and done Everton and done Nottingham Forest and Villa have been under, you know, scrutiny. And I think it's just going to get worse and worse with PSR. And of course, Leicester City somehow, quite cleverly, escaped it by getting relegated and then coming back up. But
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, you know, just to help City out, we'll gladly take Rodri off their hands. You know,
yeah,
that'd solve our issue as well. You know.
Well, final 2 questions. You know, I did want to mention our game against Everton recently. Of course, very successful trip up to Liverpool. They were 2-0 up. We thought it was absolutely curtains. I was, in the grumpiest of moods as you can possibly imagine. And then we ended up winning 3-2 after, I think it was 8 minutes, and we scored 3 goals.
It was fucking wonderful. Fucking wonderful. And just to say, I mean, the thing is, you saw the Everton fans in that train station the week before, and they were so. And I was thinking, how angry must they be now to lose 3-2 after that? Oh, fucking hell! Because Everton fans as well. Oh my God, they're angrier than Liam Gallagher. You know what I mean? So.
They were giving it the big one at 2-0 up.
Oh,
and we thought, they thought they turned the corner. It was all right. And then all of a sudden we come back and won 3-2. Sorry, Everton.
What a game. Amazing.
Oh, it was. But does it concern you as well that we have got that tenacity, even though the odds are stacked against us? Because the odds are going to be stacked against us at Anfield.
Yeah, you can call it tenacity, you can call it luck. It's what you need lots of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, we saw that with Liverpool when we beat Barcelona.
Yeah.
We're down 3-0. We're never going to beat them, no way. And when a team can do that and they can come back, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of Bournemouth, but I remember the ins and outs of the Liverpool team when we beat Barcelona at home. We didn't have Salah. We didn't have Hart. We had Origi up front, and we had Shaqiri. I mean, we didn't have a full squad at all. But for some reason, there was this spirit of like, we're going to fucking win this, and you can see that was in Bournemouth. It was such an exciting game to watch.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely, bring it on. I'd much rather play a team that I just want to win and then just full of energy and spirit than, like a fucking Chelsea of old who would just park the bus after the 10th minute, So, yeah, I'll bring it on, absolutely. And good luck.
I know a couple of Everton fans, and I just want to share with you one thing that they said. They turned round and said, you can't do that against any other team in the Premier League apart from Everton because they're that shite. So at least they know.
Listen, I mean, at least with United and City in the same city, it's like, City were down there and United were up there, and then it's like that now. And so at least it was a bit of give and take and ebb and flow. But Everton have always been shite, you know what I mean? And so, to be next to Liverpool and just to see, and they fucking hate us. They really do. I mean, I'm not that bothered about it. I mean, my Scouse mates hate Everton. They fucking hate Everton.
Yeah.
Because I'm not from Liverpool, but I've spent a lot of time there. I don't hate Everton as much as I hate Chelsea, or Man United. But they fucking hate Everton. But Everton hate Liverpool more. And I can see why.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matthew, we have to predict this game. How's it going to go? I think I know which way you're probably going to bet.
What, the Bournemouth-Liverpool game?
Yes.
Yeah, you were saying it's at Anfield, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I think you might get one. But maybe not, because we've got that clean sheet, haven't we? You know what I mean? And how far away is it, the Bournemouth game?
It's just over a week away.
Oh, right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Forest on Saturday, and then it's the day after Forest. Right. Yeah. If we keep a clean sheet against Forest, then our confidence is going to be roaring, the defence. So that's going to be hard to score against us. If you're going to draw, then amazing. But if we beat Forest, which we're fucking going to do, because I'm going to be 7 rows back at the Cup, first time ever in my life. My God! So watch that game and you'll see me. Watch out for the beard. No, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm going to have to predict a win there. I'm really sorry, Craig.
That's all right. I'll let you off, Matthew. I didn't expect anything less, but you can probably guess that I'm predicting an upset. just because I will. I'm going to say a 2-1 win.
Whoa! I think last season, definitely last season. Yeah, I would have easily done that. But my confidence is good, and there's a real confidence in the team at the moment. So I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool.
Well, as long as we don't get beat 9-0, and then my mate Brian, who is a devout Liverpool fan, has to drive us back. It's all right. It's all right. He was, yeah. Well, I'm hoping, but yeah, he'll probably be the driver as well. So yeah, can't get beat. Although saying that, he'll probably leave us in Liverpool if we do win. So make your own bloody way home. Matthew, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on this show.
And now I do, because Bournemouth are my closest team. So, closest Premiership team. You and Southampton. So they've gone down, haven't they? Or they're back up now.
They're back up, unfortunately. Well, for one season.
Yo, Southampton. I can't keep up. Southampton and Bournemouth are my closest teams for where I live. So I've always got a bit of a love for Bournemouth. The fact they've stayed up, and good on them. You know what I mean? I've been to the Vitality Stadium, and I wasn't sure if it was a stadium or a corner shop. It was so small. But no, it's great, and full respect to Bournemouth, and I hope you do well this season.
No, thank you so much, Matthew, and all the very, very best to yourself and Dodgy. Please pass on my regards to the guys as well, and no doubt we'll catch up very, very soon.
Bless you, Craig. Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks so much, Matthew. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, do check out all of our other videos. We have had many special guests from the world of music on. We've had Adam Devlin from the Blue Tones on, Gaz Whelan from the Happy Mondays, Damon Minchella from Ocean Colour Scene, Richard Archer from Hard Fi, Peter Hooton from The Farm, and many, many others as well. So do go check them all out. It's on the interview tab. Do as well, like I say, subscribe. It does help the channel to grow. Until the next one, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.